Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Recruiting Girls, Practitioners' Perspectives. Let's begin today with an audience poll. I'd like to ask these questions to find out a bit about the students that you're involved with. So please use the polling function and tell us whether they're A, in elementary, C, high school, or some combination there. You can see the choices A, B, C, D, or E. Now, all of you know exactly who your students are, so please go ahead. I'm just going to give you another moment to type in the responses, and then we'll see who's here from the audience. Okay, we're just about ready to see the results of the poll. Just one moment. Here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the results of this first question. All right, so we have really a combination between C, D, and E. So we have people from high school, college, and adult continuing education, and some combination of student populations. So that's good. So now we know where the perspective that you're coming to us with. It's largely a higher level of the K-12 spectrum and some college, of course. Now let's clear that poll and go to the second polling question. Here's the question now. In which areas are your challenges for girls in STEM mainly found? Is it A, recruitment? Is it B, retention? C, maybe it's subject offerings. D, support from school, getting your administrators to support you, or finding resources and time yourself. I wish there was an all of the above here, so you're going to have to make your best choice. I bet you a lot of people are wishing they could click on all of them. Make your best choice out of the A, B, C, D, and E's. Okay, here we go. I'm going to give you a little countdown. You got to make your decision here, and then we'll take a look at the polling question. All right, here we go. Closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look at that. There's quite an agreement here with girls, and reposition this a little bit. It's recruitment, so that's the key thing, and of course it's the topic of our webinar today, but notice there's some responses to support from school as well as finding resources and time. So thank you very much for doing this. To answer the question that appeared in the chat window, we vote using the polling tool, which is in the upper part of the participant window. But now it's time to go ahead with our webinar, and I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Marie Boyette. She is the Assistant Director at the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center. And Marie, I'm now going to turn over the presentation to you, and make sure you turn on your mic and go ahead.
It's common knowledge that women are underrepresented in STEM careers, and that girls are typically underrepresented in STEM technology type elective coursework, and also in co-ed extracurricular activities. School curriculum, we found, is centered around science and math rather than technology and engineering, if it offers STEM-centered curriculum at all. And although women fill over half of the jobs in the U.S. economy, they have less than 25% of STEM jobs. So it's an ongoing issue, and I think it's part of being embedded in society, but we're all trying to find answers. There are quite a few successful fix-it strategies currently in play. Among the successful ones are female mentoring and role models, and special events targeted toward recruiting girls. And of course, starting earlier with STEM programs such as at the elementary level. Posters, DVDs, websites, scholarships designed just for girls are very popular, as are effective outreach programs which provide girls with opportunities to learn about high-tech careers, visit high-tech facilities, and provide a strong online presence. Strategies such as mentoring and role models are solid, and gains are definitely being made, but so far it just hasn't been enough to equalize the number of boys and girls engaged in STEM curriculum and embarking on STEM careers. And male-female equity in STEM college and career pathways, especially in the technology and engineering, that's the T&E side of STEM, is not going fast enough to support the needs of a highly technical workforce. Mike, can you tell us more about today's webinar?
Marie, thank you for giving us that perspective, sort of setting the stage for us to go forward. Thank you. In this webinar, we're going to hear from a number of STEM education practitioners and sort of a surprise visit from 2 students as well. These practitioners were giving you a perspective from different levels, talking about some ideas that have worked for them and that they're actually using in practice for engaging girls in STEMs. Let's start with our first presenter for today. I'm pleased to welcome Christine Angel Danger. She's the focuses on K-12 STEM curriculum and instruction, and as you see, she's the coordinator of Math Science Partnerships. Christine, I've got to ask you this, what's with the CAPE? I mean, how did that come about? Tell us a little bit about that, and then you can go ahead and get started. Go ahead.
Well, doesn't everyone wear a cape when they're teaching? Isn't that just normal? Part of the premise, I taught kindergarten through 8th grade, and with all of them it works very well. But my classroom theme is superheroes, and I teach that the real superheroes in the world are the scientists and the engineers who are designing that technology that's going to save the world. If kids know superheroes, they'll save us from disease and starvation and all the terrible things that could happen. So
that's cool.
They want to grow up to be those.
Thanks, Christine. Go ahead and take us forward into your presentation.
All right. Well, I've been teaching for about 15 years. About 6 of them as a STEM coach, science coach, and a year and a half as a STEM resource teacher. Right now, I'm the coordinator for the Math Science Partnership, which is a partnership between Hillsborough, Polk, and USF. And I'm going to change slides. I'm figuring this out. When I was at my last school, I began working there a year ago, last fall. And one of the first things that was very obvious, I was tutoring middle school math before and after school. And we had a lot of boys coming to math tutoring and no girls. There were 1 or 2 girls that showed up maybe once or twice, but they didn't come back. So, and we had as many or more girls struggling in math as we did boys. So we decided to form a club for our girls. We called it the HOT Girls, or the Higher Order Thinking Girls Math Club, because hot girls love math. We hypothesized that the cause of these girls slipping in math and not being interested in tutorials and improving their math was mainly a social reason. The girls would come before and after for language arts, for drama, for music, but never for math. So we got a grant through Donors Choose and purchased a set of this book by Danica McKellar, Math Doesn't Suck. And it's a very female-centric book about surviving and thriving as a mathematician in middle school. And our girls got together and read it during lunches, and we made it into a sort of a party atmosphere club. We had treats, cookies, cupcakes. We always gave out prizes, like notebooks and pretty pencils, stickers, that kind of thing. Our girls designed, you can see the logo on there, Hot Girls Heart Math t-shirts that we had made for them. And in August, when I began there, the girls weren't coming, but by March, we had 28 girls who were consistently attending the math club and the math tutorials before and after school, and then several others who dropped in some of the time when they needed help. But the girls really became a support group, a community for each other, and were getting together really to help each other to learn math, and because they started to enjoy it. We haven't gotten the test scores back, but I'm going to strongly guess that they've gone up. I know the teachers, little tests they do in the classrooms and things, they said the girls were definitely improving in math. Another way that I've seen girls get very involved in math is through an initiative that our district has in elementary in K through 5. And I know there are a lot of those elementary people on the webinar right now, but we need to get this STEM into our elementary schools to get them ready and thinking and wanting to do this. But when we started with these engineering design challenges in elementary school, they're done every day on Mondays. And the engineering design challenges are lessons that run for 4 class periods, but a week apart every Monday. And they're built to teach a science standard using an engineering practice. All of those start with a request for proposals. And that is the problem, the challenge, or the mission is given as an engineering request for proposals. And that really seems to engage not just the boys who tend to like the engineering, but the girls really want to help. That's kind of a proven point about teaching girls. They want to help. So when you give them a problem and say, you know, there's victims of a disaster, we need to save their lives, they become very engaged. They want to help solve that problem. Once they know what the problem is, they brainstorm and investigate. A lot of times this involves discussion, research, that kind of thing. And the discussion and the collaboration I found also worked very well with girls. That comes naturally to them. They want to collaborate, they want to discuss, they want to work as a group. Next, they would plan and design. And this is where the boys tend to dive in head first. I'm talking about elementary boys here. And the majority of the girls are very methodic. They're very good at the note-taking and thinking it through and will this really work? But a big, big piece of the plan, design, build, test piece that I found to really help all of the students with success is that they learned that you learn from your mistakes. You don't need to be perfect the first time. It's okay if it doesn't work because we learned something about why it didn't work and how to rebuild, design, test. So they reflect and improve on what went well, what didn't. An example of this was one of our engineering design challenges sets up a request for proposals for a country that lacks clean drinking water for children. And immediately, oh no, what can we do to help? And there's this need to help. So they research, they build models, they test, they reflect, they improve, they retest. And it's an iterative process. They keep repeating this and looking for support. And they want to compare their methods to other groups' methods and see what they can use to improve their designs. The tried and true method, beginning with very early exposure to engineering design. This was a center that was used in the kindergarten, but at Turner Bartel's K-8, where I was last, we set up engineering design centers in every classroom in every subject. So for example, this was in a language arts classroom. There was a set of Legos. So in this instance, they read a story about Curious George, and Curious George and the Man with the Yellow Hat, he got into a lot of trouble and there were a lot of problems because the road was being repaired and it was closed down, and adventures happened in Curious George. So the kids read the story and then they were given the Legos and said, if you're a civil engineer and you're designing this road, how could you have designed it so that it wouldn't disrupt traffic and cause these problems? So it's even starting from that very young age. Another tried and true method that we used that we found to be very successful was bringing in female engineers and scientists and having them talk about their careers. And seeing those female engineers and scientists made the girls feel, well, everyone feel like, this is normal. Women are engineers, women are scientists. This is not something different or strange. This is just the norm. This is the way it is. And then when they came in and showed things that were really interesting, then it became something really cool and something that they all wanted to do. Another thing that we found worked very well for all of our students, including our girls, we have in elementary in 4th and 5th grade math and science replacement lessons using the Lego robotics. So instead of instead of the Lego robotics being an instead of doing a math or a science lesson, it's how we do the math and science lesson. So the kids in this picture are learning about numbers that are less than 1 and more than 0. They had to program the robot to turn, but if they put a 1 in the program, it turned too much. So they said, well, we put a 1. If we put a 0, it doesn't go. If we put a 1, it goes too far. And these were 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders. And so we had to talk about, well, what's more than 1 and less than 0, and looking at a part of 1. So that wasn't a club, it was a regular part of the curriculum, but those are some of the things that I've tried that have gotten the girls I've taught very interested in STEM. I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you, Christine. There's a question that came up in the audience, and one of our other presenters made a comment, but I'd like to try that question on you. Do you think, you mentioned social reasons that are important in considering girls' decisions. Do girls do better in separate classes? I mean, should girls take math in a class full of all girls? Some of the 2 young women on our presenter list think that might be true, but they don't mind the competitiveness either. I'm wondering if you had a comment on that or what you might think.
They might do better. I'm not necessarily in favor of that. The elementary school that I worked at before, we had, in addition to the regular population, 1 classroom of girls only and 1 classroom of boys only for every grade level. And what we found, and what we found in talking to some of the other schools that were doing the same thing, was the girls did do much better in girls-only classes, but the boys were doing less well. So
I'm not sure exactly what to make of that, but it's interesting. Yeah. I have another question for you, if I can ask it. Have you ever, you mentioned role models. Have you had a chance to work with female college students as role models? And you mentioned, people in the workplace. What about female college students? Have you ever used them?
Yes, actually, USF, their College of Engineering has a Women in Engineering organization and a Hispanic Women in Engineering, and both of them still are regular volunteers at Turner Bartels K-8, and they've come in and done a lot of things. There's also another Audrey Boutisse at USF, who's a chemical engineer, who has worked with them quite a lot. But yeah, we've had a lot of them, but mainly graduate students come in.
Yeah, I've read a lot, of course. I don't have that much direct experience, but role models seem an important thing. I have the question slide up to remind everybody, and there's already a lot of information flowing back and forth in the chat window. Many of us who are logged in have an answer to somebody's question, and it's fine to put that right into the chat window. It's a good way to increase the dialogue here. Christine, I thought that approach that you use, that 0-1 thing to describe, or that concept of what is a part of a number using the robot, boy, that was a good one. I want to try that. I like that. I imagine it worked with those students, did it?
It really did. They really got it. I was surprised they got it so well. I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. But the robots are very engaging.
Christine, thanks. We're going to stop here for questions, but there's other questions in the window. We'll get to those as the webinar proceeds. Christine, thanks for those tried and true methods. Colleagues, it's my pleasure now to turn to our second presenter. There's her picture. It's Elizabeth Simpson, and you can see that she's at the Greco Pre-Engineering STEM Academy in Tampa. Elizabeth, thanks very much for joining us today. Why don't you go ahead?
Hi, I just wanted to let you guys know there might be a bell that happens in the background because I am at school, so that's a little bit of background noise you might hear. But
we're used to bells. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, our lives are run by them, right?
Right.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm the engineering teacher at the Greco Engineering STEM Academy. I'm the lead teacher of the STEM program, and we've been around for 7 years now. We have boys and girls in our program, but we have really great female teachers, female role models, and our whole academy model is based on the high school career academy model of having the students in the same program for all 3 years of the program. So it enables us to build relationships with the students, tailor the curriculum a little bit to the students. We know their personalities, but it also lets us build in rigor to the program because we do have level requirements for the students. They have to have, well, it was SCAT, but they have to have an FSA level, FCAT level 3 or higher in math and reading to get into the program. There's 5 teachers who teach all the students. There's myself, the engineering teacher, a math teacher, a science teacher, a history teacher, and a language arts teacher. And we all teach the same kids for all 3 years of middle school. And at the beginning of the year, we have time built in where we are planning the curriculum for the year. So we have cross-curriculum activities where whatever they're doing in their math class is reinforced in the engineering class and vice versa throughout the year. So the benefits of our academy is they are able to earn between 9 and 12 high school credits by the time they exit the academy. They work with a lot of professionals. We visit colleges. We have USF students who come over from the Florida Engineering Society who do an after-school program with the students. We go on field trips with FLATE, of course, and then the integrated curriculum. The educational cohort of students and teachers is really at the heart of what we do, though, because we do get to know those kids so well. And then they get to plan their careers in advance. They get to know a little bit about themselves, what they like. The girls, especially, some of them come in just knowing that they're a good, strong student, but not necessarily what all of engineering involves, and it helps them get a better understanding of what their strengths are and where they do have strong engineering skills. With our current population of students, 46% of them are female. We have 126 kids in the program this year, and one of our more successful ways of recruiting is going to our local elementary schools. And we're not necessarily looking just for girls, but I take a mix of everybody. I take girls, I take boys, I take a good mix of our whole entire population. And, oh, there's the bell. And that lets them, the 5th graders, see, well, hey, that looks like me. I could be successful in that program too, because they don't always think of themselves as, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. We have a really great word-of-mouth recruiting and marketing tool from our parents. Because we have the kids for so long, we build relationships with the parents as well. Sorry.
That's okay, Elizabeth. Don't worry about that.
I'll start in just a second. Okay, message from my principal. So the question, 48% is the average for all 3 grade levels, yes. When we go to the 5th grader school, we tell them about all of the hands-on activities that we're doing. Anytime they're in my class, the whole idea is if their hands are working, it's hands-on, minds on. As long as they're working with their hands, then they're always thinking and learning. And we bring the alumni that went to that elementary school. So they're familiar with the school, they know some of the kids, they know some of the teachers, and it really helps to kind of bridge that gap. Some of the things that we've noticed over the years as the girls aren't always like the Lego experts at home that have spent huge amounts of time building models or playing video games, but they have so many qualities of a good engineer, and they just don't realize that, hey, that could be an engineering skill. We have a lot of students who have been very successful after they've left. We have girls who are at the high school level now who have created their own electrothon car team. We have girls who have continued on who, when they got into the program, they thought, oh yeah, I like science. And they've gone on to go to University of Florida's engineering program. We found that girls happen to be more task-oriented than the boys, and they're a little bit more organized in their study habits, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their engineering skills are on the same level. So we help to show them what engineering skills are. Questions?
Yes, that's a question break, Elizabeth. We're very impressed by one of the numbers that you showed, and it's that, well, was it 46 or 48 or 47% young women in your STEM programs? Is that all across your 3 middle school grades, or is that just one grade?
Nope, that's across all 3 of our grade levels. Our 6th grade class, the percentage is actually a little bit higher. I think it's for just the 6th grade, I think we're somewhere in the 60% range. Our girls outnumber our boys.
I've got a hard question for you. I'm not sure if you know the answer. Let's suppose you were in high school instead of middle school. Would you be as successful, or have girls already made up their minds? You know, some people say start early. What's your sense? Is middle school really the good starting point here? Could this work in high school? Could you get that many girls?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The academy model, it definitely works, but definitely for attracting girls to engineering, because of the programs that are starting earlier, then it's easier to have a successful high school program. But there's been, even without the elementary school and middle school programs for years, there's been very successful high school programs that recruit girls into the programs. So the fact that now we are seeing more elementary schools and middle schools start earlier, then hopefully we should see an increase in that number, which I think is the overall goal.
I think it is. Some of the high-tech companies, are now reporting directly the number of women employed in their workforces, and they're not great numbers, but they hope by doing so it'll raise awareness of it. And I think programs like yours really are good examples of what can be done. Do you do anything with parents? You talked about how you reach out to girls in their classes. Do you do anything with parents? Are they influencers at this age?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. They're completely dependent on their parents at this age because they can't drive, but they want to go everywhere.
Sure.
So absolutely. And parent involvement in schools is always a tough thing, but we invite them to anything that we do. We invite them to the classroom. We have parent shadow days where the parents can come in and just hang out with the kids for the day, because sometimes they'll walk into my class and they're like, I want to be in that class. So we invite them to come on in, and some of them take us up on it, and then they come in and they see what it's like for the day, and then of course they all have friends, so they go home and they talk about the program, and it acts as a great marketing tool for us.
All right. Elizabeth, thank you very much for your time. I know you're working right in your classroom. Actually,
yeah.
we're admiring of that today, I have to tell you, because all of us are teachers at one level or other on the line here, and so we're impressed that you're doing that. I know you're going to have to... I have
26 kids in the room right now. You can't hear one of them.
That's great. I know actually you're going to have to drop back off to get back into your class, but we do appreciate it. I was very impressed with how your alumni network, a so-called alumni network, is working with you. That's a good message for us. So thank you again, Elizabeth. We're going to now go forward, folks. Please keep your questions and comments coming into the chat window. We're having a lot of fun in the chat window talking about welding. But now it's time to introduce our next presenter. It's Jeff Collusion, and he's at T.R. Robinson High School. And you can see that his title is Recruiting Girls for STEM Programs, right there in the district of Hillsborough County in Florida. Jeff, thanks very much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I want to know more about that picture in the pilot seat there too. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, I wanted to say I'm honored to represent all the high schools, I guess, that are involved in recruiting girls in STEM. It is a challenge, but it is fun, and I hope that we can solve the problem so that when they graduate from middle school to high school, we'll see a lot more faces in the classes that need them. The picture in the upper right is actually a little bit older than what I am, or a little bit younger than what I am now. And I'm in a KC-135 aerial tanker cockpit overseas somewhere in the Middle East on the end of September in 2001. So we deployed pretty quickly after 9/11, and our guys were over there refueling and fighting. And I took my guys over there from Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota and did a little flying myself. So that was my first career. So now I'm in my second career, enjoying teaching at high school level aerospace technology quite a bit. And have all kinds of students, boys and girls, I enjoy. And again, but my problem, just like a lot of people's that we're talking about today, is to get more girls in the program and get them interested in aerospace somehow. So let me head on here. The county here in Tampa, Hillsborough County, is a huge county, and it's got lots and lots of career and technical programs that all have STEM involved in them, of course, ranging across 17 career clusters. Mine is kind of fun because it's the only high school level aerospace course of its kind in the district. But we do have feeder middle schools, and they all teach the first year of aerospace, and there are other middle schools that also teach something like exploring aerospace. So I do have some females that come in from STEM programs in the middle school that continue on into the Robinson program. And yes, that is a jet engine outside my door there, mounted on the FedEx gave us that jet engine a few years back when they got rid of all their old 727s. But just like everybody else, we all have the issue of getting the girls into STEM. It's a 4-year program here at Robinson, developed back in 2002. You can see with the partnership between the district school and MacDill Air Force Base, they do give us help with some things here in the classroom. And the curriculum itself is based on Florida's aviation and space subject matter. But it is all changing, and I think this will help the female numbers, actually. We're moving from all high school Florida curriculum to an Embry-Riddle University dual enrollment curriculum, which I think will appeal to a lot of girls here in school so they can get the college credits before they graduate and head on over to Embry-Riddle with scholarships if they decide to do that. The number of students I have total every year is shown there, about 100 per year. Maximum sometimes reaches 125. And there'll be a slide coming up here showing how many girls are in the program shortly. But again, this is going to be a nice change, and it's going to go from all aviation and space to a lot of drones. The Embry-Riddle is kind of leading the way in universities around the nation and the teaching of unmanned aerial systems, and that's what we're changing to now. So we go from a lot of flying toys to flying toys and drone toys in here as well. So I think that will also be appealing to some of the kids that want to get involved with drones. Challenges, just like everyone else, are getting them into the program to begin with, of course, and that is help with a little advertising. We do go out to our middle school feeder programs and talk to the kids, boys and girls, about the program. I usually take at least couple girls with me on that, just so the other girls, of course, can see that there are high school girls in the program. And then, of course, if they do come in, then we like to try and keep them for the whole program because it is a 4-year program. And that's hard sometimes because, like we mentioned, when they come from middle of the high school, I think they become more socially oriented. They seem to become more socially oriented and less STEM oriented. Some girls, anyway. I've got a couple girls here that stay STEM oriented, thank goodness. But keeping them for the whole program, you know, they're what they want to do in high school changes, of course, with all the activities going on. And so it is a challenge to keep them after that first year. Normally, I find if you keep them for 2 years, they're going to stay for the 3rd and the 4th year. And so we do that with making sure that we connect them with the subject matter, let them know that there are other females out there in the real world doing aerospace stuff, whether it's engineering or putting together airplanes or being pilots and other things. We had one time a few weeks back, we Skyped with a female engineer I had met out at NASA Johnson Space Center, and she is an engineer in space habitat. So we were doing a segment on living in space and talking about what it would be like to, what the resources and stuff necessary to live out in space would be in a space colony. And we Skyped with her for an hour, and the kids got to hear firsthand from a space habitat engineer what would be needed for long-term space travel and living in space, something like that. So if you can connect them with the females out there that are doing that job, it's a really, really good thing. Over time, our programs look like this over the last 10 years, so it is trending upward, fortunately. And we do that, again, the feeding school, advertising. The district also has a career and technical education fair night, which is held in the fall at one of the high schools, so that all the CTE programs are shown there, so the kids going into high school can see what's available for them, and of course we participate in that. I think instructor credibility, the instructor background has a little bit to do with it, although I wouldn't say instructor personality is key. It certainly is an issue. It certainly is an issue for some of the girls. But I think the job environment affects the enrollment as well, because if I was trying to get people to go into aerospace and there were no aerospace jobs out there, it would be pretty tough. Fortunately for me, there's a huge bathtub, an empty spot for millions of pilots and millions of mechanics and millions of female engineers and all kinds of things out there for females to do. So for me right now in the world, it's a pretty lucky job environment to be teaching aerospace. The successes in the past 10 years I've been here, the program's been around for about 12, 13, I think. We've had some interesting, a lot of fun here and a lot of successes. We've got a young lady, as a matter of fact, she's here with us today, who's taking flight training. We've had a couple of ladies that have passed their SolidWorks computer-aided design certification tests and have that. We've done a few local partnerships and field trips with organizations that hire high school students for internships. In the past, as you see there, we've had a few that have gone on into aerospace-related programs. And fortunately for us being next to MacDill Air Force Base, we have NOAA out there that actually hires students as interns. And we've had 2 ladies who worked out there and 2 guys over the who have worked during their summer between their junior and senior year. One of our gals was actually lead student on an airplane we were building in the classroom here, a little RB-9, and she got to work on the P-3 Hurricane Hunter airplanes out there as a mechanic. She loved working with her hands, and so she went out there and worked for a summer as a mechanic on the P-3 Hurricane. And the other lady that went out there, girl that went out there, was hired on in the administrative area, and so she got to work with the scientists, and they liked her so much that they kept her all her senior year and a year after that. So she actually had a couple years with NOAA before she went on to college. So there's a lot of good successes for the local area with all the aerospace around Tampa here. I'd like to pause here for a second before I introduce Megan and Jackie to you and see if there's any questions.
Jeff, there is one question, and it did come up for the previous presenter as well. As you reach out to people, do you do anything specific for parents? Because as you know, they're often involved in their students' decisions. Anything specific there?
Nothing other than talk to them when I meet them, but no, nothing specifically other than meet and greet and explain the program.
Okay, all right, that's good.
And the students also get to talk to the parents as well. That's true.
Sure, sure, of course. Why don't you go ahead and introduce your colleagues and go ahead with that section.
Okay, so today I have 2 of my female students with me. They're both sophomores, and Megan will speak first, and she has had middle school STEM experience, and then Jackie is also here, and she has not had middle school experience, so I thought we'd have an interesting perspective from those 2. So I'm going to introduce Megan and let her go ahead and perhaps introduce herself and tell how she got interested in STEM.
Hi, I'm Megan. How I got interested in STEM was I like challenging things, so I enjoyed playing with Legos when I was younger, and when I was 10, I built a strip wood canoe with my grandfather, and that continued on for 3 years, and then I just love being interested in the aerospace side of things and working with my hands, so a lot of fun.
Thank you, Megan. And also with us is Jackie P. And Jackie, why don't you tell us about the same thing?
Okay. Hi, I'm Jackie. When I was little, I really liked building stuff, especially like in my dad's shed. I'd get the pieces of wood and put them together and just see what I could make. And when I shadowed at Robinson High School, the girl I was shadowing, I got to come into this class. And this class, it was really different and unique from all the other classes that I saw. And I like different and unique things, so I wanted to join it just to see the difference between this and the other classes, and I really liked it. And we continue to always learn about new things because there's so many areas in aerospace. And due to the uniqueness of it versus other classes, it always stays interesting, and it's always something fun that I look forward to.
Thank you, Jackie. Mike, back to you.
I have a question for both of our young women that have joined today. It looks like you're in a cockpit of an airplane. Are both of you interested in being pilots?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm currently working on getting my pilot's license now, and then I want to go on to Embry-Riddle and work on getting my commercial pilot's license so I can be able to do that. I'm not necessarily interested in being a pilot, but I would like to work on like the structures of airplanes, and like I said earlier, I like designing things. So being able to design stuff maybe in a cockpit or work on designs of airplanes or whatever happens.
That's good. I have another question for you from the audience. I'll start with Megan. If you had to convince one of your girlfriends, to consider going into STEM, what would be your strong argument? How would you convince them to be part of this?
I would pretty much tell them that it's not really a guy thing. Well, it is a guy thing, but I wouldn't worry about how much of a guy thing it is because there are so many guys in the program. But it's a big deal because there's good instructors that they really take off the edge of it being a guy thing because they're always working to make sure that we are equal throughout the program. And I feel like it's too much of a guy thing. So I would want to just bring her in and make sure that she knows that it's not, and make sure she's comfortable throughout all of it.
So, okay, that's not bad. So recognize that there's a lot of guys there, but it can work. I guess that's what you're saying, huh?
Yes, sir.
Jackie, could you answer the same question? What would you say to one of your friends? Say, hey, this STEM thing might be worth looking into. How would you convince them?
I don't know, probably along the same lines as Megan. And I would also mention how there's lots of opportunities that you can get from this, and there's lots of leadership roles you can have. And I would just tell her that it might be new at first and it might seem intimidating, but you have to go into it thinking that you can do it. And as long as you tell yourself that you can go into the STEM program and you can come out successful, you can, because it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy, as long as you go through it thinking that you can do it, you can do it, and it's always different and unique, and it's helpful in a lot of ways. So
that's a good message that I think, as you go forward, I bet, Jeff, these young women would be great spokespersons for your program as they reach out to other classes, don't you think?
They have been, and they always will be, I'm sure. Thank you.
Good. Well, folks, Megan and Jackie, thank you. That's the time we have for questions today. And I think I was mentioning to Megan on the rehearsal that make sure you put this on your resume that you were part of a national webinar. So don't forget to do that. Colleagues, let's go forward. Now we've heard from 3 practitioners. I'd like to, that was our question period, right? I'd like to turn back to Marie. Marie, tell us a little bit more about the situation, some of your data and things that you have in Florida. I think that'll help us go into the next session. So go ahead, Marie.
Well, here at FLATE, I mostly work with reporting and data evaluation. So we look at data statewide for Florida, and that's what we're going to look at today. Just briefly, the majority of my data I get from the Florida Department of Education, and they have a huge lot of data in their data warehouse to look at. And we're just going to look at a few demographics today. For secondary students, that's high school students, only 15% of over 23,000 enrolled in Florida secondary engineering, technology, and related programs are female. And of the 3,300 or so secondary students completing that program, 16% are female. So this trend continues. Only 16% of almost 5,000 students enrolled in engineering, technology, and related associate degree programs in college are female. And of the 502 engineering, technology, and related AS degree program completions, 17% are female. And these trends are variable, plus or minus only 1% for about the past 5 years. So not much has changed according to the data in the past 5 years. And speaking from an employment perspective, for this particular job, advanced manufacturing and engineering technology, only 18% of the workforce are female. So you can see that's kind of a consistent trend and not a very good one. Marilyn is going to show us some local data that paints a prettier picture.
Marilyn, it's Mike. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and take us forward in the presentation.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to say a special thanks to our teacher partners that you heard from earlier here in Hillsborough County. And also the students from Jeff's school. I think they gave us some great ideas about what they're doing in the classrooms and in their schools that seem to be working for them, and hopefully some good tips for everyone else. And I'm really proud for them being brave to be on webinars. We don't often get teachers out of the classrooms to do such things. So am I navigating or pushing the slides? So I want to kind of sum up some things that we've heard about today that kind of fit into some bigger picture national data, and from a little different perspective. If you look out into the literature, something like just under 60% of girls say that they went into a STEM career. If they went into a STEM career, they'd have to work harder than a man just to be taken seriously. So there's a perception problem. We heard our two young students, girl students, say make some similar comments there. And another thing that came up that this reinforces what you heard throughout the webinar, I think, that girls want a career that they love, and they want to help people, and they want to make a difference in the world. And definitely we heard that from, I think, all of our speakers, making sure that the girls knew that the STEM fields and engineering technology, manufacturing, whatever, are all careers and jobs that can actually help people in different ways than a healthcare professional, but certainly help us in our society and animals, as Angel said earlier. I can't remember the third thing she said, but it was a great comment coming from the girls. Okay, so one last little tidbit. 81% of the STEM girls are interested in pursuing STEM careers, but only 13 actually say it's their first choice. That certainly could be because of the perception issue that it's going to be harder to keep up with and compete with the men in that field. And I'd like to go back and talk just for a moment about some of the these career academies in our county. But first of all, this is the high school data in industrial technology. A couple years ago, everybody's familiar with this data being a couple years in arrears when we finally get a hold of it. These are industrial technology, includes manufacturing, automotive, welding, those types of programs. In our county, those CTE programs, you'll see the only one that looks sort of nice is the drafting program, where there might be some design work at 27% female. And just as a comparison, but a typical engineering college, I would say this is pretty typical, 23% female in the College of Engineering at our local university here. So always struggling to keep more girls in these programs. But now let's back up to programs like Elizabeth's program and the parallel high school programs that go with them. So we saw her 48% female pie chart for the average of those 3 grades. And here you'll see a couple years ago she had only 32%. This is the 12-13 data. Thank you. But at that same time, when they put these academies in middle schools, this whole holistic, all the teachers teach together, the real learning community style, you can see that the 5 academies throughout the county had very high percentage of girls. Even a couple years ago, actually, Elizabeth was sort of at the low end of this. Look at this. The code is at the bottom. E is engineering focused academy, environmental science, health, and maritime is the M. We have a big port here in Tampa in that academy. So I think it's pretty almost astounding that there's like no issue here. We have lots of girls in those programs in middle school, and they managed to map those programs into similar programs at the high school level. Part of the plan of putting this in place with a grant from the Helios Foundation a few years ago was to do exactly this. And you can see pretty high percentage of females still in those high school related programs as the students moved from middle to high school. Now, I have no guarantee. I don't have the data that says, student per student, but there's some pretty good persistence overall in those percentages of females. So I think that's it, unless there's more questions, and we're getting close to the end, I think.
We are, Marilyn. We're perfectly on time. Let me take you back. Let me drive for a minute. I'm going to go back one slide.
Great.
Let me find my controller. Here it is. So going back one slide, these are impressive numbers here. You mentioned Elizabeth's program at Greco. Where does welding, but actually there's not welding in this level, is there?
No, not in, no. I don't think it would be in middle school.
No, too young. Too young,
I believe. And this particular project that these schools were engaged in was grant funded, and it was set up to kind of map from the middle to the high school and develop these learning community style programs for CTE. And part of their effectiveness, and I think part of the hidden good results of data that came out of it, was that we had a large percentage of girls, although that was not the focus of the project. The project was persistence. So how do we keep kids interested in these sciences and STEM, and how do we get them to persist and keep their math skills up, which are always a barrier going into 2-year programs or onto college. So we weren't I don't know who actually chose the disciplines that we're going to be focused on in these academies, but there was definitely, as you can see, one in almost mapping directly one middle school to one high school program, with the hopes we would have a good place for them to transition to between the two levels of school and keep them going.
Seems like a good strategy to match those like that.
Yeah, it was a great. They did a lot of professional development, and had the typical career academy activities for recruiting, as Elizabeth and Jeff mentioned. Actually, those kinds of things you do for career academies that are elective programs. We do have a couple of great welding programs in Hillsborough County in the high schools. I think there are 3 that are pretty full, and they have pretty low female enrollment the last time I saw those numbers.
Yeah,
So,
here in our county, the welding programs are full. I don't know their female percentages offhand, but they are full. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have another question, Marilyn. I might try you first and then ask Jeff, if he's still on the line, what his response might be. A lot of the theme that we heard today, several themes, but one of them was mentors on how that has worked. Someone mentioned having an engineer come in by Skype. Do you think that's a common practice? You know, you can't always convince working people to spend the time to physically visit the classroom. Have you seen that work using virtual methods to bring people in?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually very timely. We have a new partnership with the Florida High-Tech Corridor Council here in Florida, in the center of the state. It encompasses about half of the counties in Florida. A program that's actually called STEM Connect, and they are doing exactly that on a kind of speaker bureau basis, but bringing STEM experts into classrooms. They're facilitating all the equipment. They're reaching out to the schools. They're coordinating the experts. And we're actually on the program a couple times, I think at the end of the month, if Desh is on the line, she might pipe in, to talk to students, particularly in rural schools, about different STEM topics. So a teacher requests, so it's like a speaker bureau, teacher requests to the corridor. They take care of all the logistics. They have the platform, and we rehearse with them and give a presentation to the school or the students in a particular classroom. So this is like an organized effort to coordinate that in our part of the state.
Well, good. Thank you. That was a good response. You know, colleagues on the line, I'd like you to help us now. I'm going to launch a survey and just some easy questions, a couple of questions. Take just a moment to do. Let's get the survey going here. And if you would click on those buttons and maybe take a moment to respond to the questions there, that'll help us as we improve these surveys going forward. Now remember, moderators and presenters, please don't take the survey. It's just for participants. As we finish up for today, we're perfectly on time. Let me ask our presenters, and not all of them were able to stay the entire length, but let me start with Jeff. Jeff, here's the final sort of question today. If you had to prioritize the actions we could take to help recruit girls into STEM fields, what would be the one thing that has the highest return on the investment, right? What's the one thing that you would focus on from all of your experience that has the most success in recruiting girls? What do you think it might be, Jeff?
I think for my case, it would be reaching out to the middle schools, to the kids there, and have them connect with the students in my class, female to female type thing, and let them personally talk to them before they come to high school. And/or they do tours of the high school during their middle school years, and they can come in and see the room and talk to the girls then. So girl-to-girl talk, whether we advertise by going there or they come here, that's probably the best one.
Gotcha. Girl-to-girl talk. Christine, Angel, Danger, if you're still on the line, how would you answer that question? What's the one thing that has the biggest return for your recruiting STEM young women?
Probably the whole school, whole class activities. Starting from elementary, they haven't really divided up what's for boys and what's for girls quite as severely as the middle school kids.
Right.
As far as what we're doing in school. So kind of having it so that everyone's expected to participate and everyone enjoys it and everyone learns.
Okay. That's good. Good. Thank you very much, Christine. Elizabeth, I don't think you're still on, but I just wanted to try. I know you're in your classroom. Are you there by any chance to respond to that question? No, okay, she's back with her students. Marilyn, what about you? What's the one thing that you've seen work where you would, if you had $1 to spend, where would you spend that dollar if you could only spend it on one point?
Yeah, turn myself off, so sorry about that.
You're back.
I think for me, so I'm not in a classroom, I see that a lot of peer-to-peer, the girl-to-girl or the whole classroom situation are very similar approaches. But I do think the role models and then some mentors are an important piece. I think seeing people do something that you think you might want to do and that look like you makes it, helps people get over those kind of, especially those vulnerable ages when those early teenage years when young girls are particularly vulnerable, I would say, as their own confidence levels are waning.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you, colleagues or presenters. I want to personally thank Marie Boyette, who organized this webinar and presented the data for us. Thank you very much, Marie, for your efforts today. And certainly we appreciate our teachers coming out of their classrooms, Jeff, Christine, and Elizabeth, taking the time today. Jeff, bringing your 2 students, that was just great, hearing their perspectives on things. Friends, I'm going to leave what's this thing called? The survey up for just another minute, but this officially ends our webinar today. All of our presenters and facilitators, we're going to go ahead and shut down the system now, and thank you again for attending today. Marilyn and Marie, I'll catch up with you afterwards. Thank you again, everyone. Goodbye.